in just about 5 minutes. We're going to let some people come get in, get settled, and then we'll start. Thank you, everybody, for coming. quick. Everybody hear me all right? All right, brilliant. My name is Elijah. This is my associate here, Joseph. We're here today for our second continuation of this lovely series called The Psychology of Music. While they're moving the piano over here and we're getting all set up for our next section, we just wanted to say a couple things and invite you all to this event.
Yeah. Is this thing working? Hey, everybody. Like you introduced me, I'm Joseph. I am the Vice President of Service and Special Projects at the University of Akron's chapter of Tau Beta Sigma. This event has been a long time in the making. We started last year, didn't we?
Yeah, it was a lot more student-led, a lot more ragtag. We got some more nice things now, so. But really, it was just something that we both bonded over to, with my background in psychology and your
My background in music and general sciences.
So we started out with the psychology of music, which was a lot more of like a brief overlap of just kind of the idea between what goes into music, how does it make us feel, and how does it connect us. And this one is kind of a little bit of a continuation of this, but we've taken a little bit of a turn with it, specifically focusing on music and emotion across both treatment and composition. So we've got a little bit of an interactive portion too. I think it'll be very exciting.
Very exciting. And this could not have been done without support from the PEGS Foundation, the School of Performing Arts, graciously lend us this space and support Tau Beta Sigma, and the Buchtel College of Arts and Sciences, who support Psy-Chi and all of its wonderful members.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna come introduce here my colleague Jennifer from the Cummings Center, which is the National Archivals for the History of Psychology, and we're gonna kind of go into it. So without further ado, let me get Jennifer up on stage.
Thank you all for coming.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Bazar, and I'm the Assistant Director at the Cummings Center for the History of Psychology. And I have the privilege this evening of sharing with you a piece of history. Thank you, Eli. Right now, we have the privilege of listening to live music, and we also live in a time where we can now go home, and with a click of a button or even a voice command, we can recall that music. We can have it sort of at any place that we want to be able to listen to it. And that's all thanks to Thomas Edison, who invented the phonograph back in 1877. His invention allowed for sound to be recorded and then reproduced on demand. And it's really the precursor for the record player that introduced a new opportunity for people to listen to recorded music in their own homes. And his initial marketing pitch was to claim that the phonograph was so realistic that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the recording and a live performance. And they even staged different concerts where they would have a live performer intermittently interspersed with a recording of the same piece that they were singing or playing at the same time. But beginning in 1919, the Edison Company decided to take a different approach. And they wanted to market to the at-home consumer. They wanted them to buy a phonograph and bring it home. And so they hired a psychologist by the name of Walter Van Dyke Bingham. And what they asked him to do was to use psychological research to look at how music affects the mind. And specifically, what they wanted to know was what music from the Edison catalog, which recordings that they had available, could help the listener to fight fatigue, quiet their children, or even cure depression. And Bingham was an applied psychologist. He was working at what was then the Carnegie Institute of Technology, and he had a background in music research. So he formed a team and set off to tackle this problem. Now, the Edison Company's marketing team worked closely with Bingham during about 3 years. In about the 1920s, they were often butting heads, though. The marketing team was focused on sales, and the psychologists were focused on research. But they came together and launched a large-scale crowdsourced project in which members of the public were asked to share how different recordings of music affected their emotions, affected their moods. What became known as the mood change chart was available for free at different Edison phonograph storefronts. It was also published in newspapers across the country. And the idea is that you would fill in this chart. Some of the questions included, what is your current mood before listening to any music? And then you would get to sort of the key question of, listen to a piece, tell us what you have just listened to, and how has it now changed your mood? As a result of the work that they did, they were able to collect about 11,000 charts that people had filled in and mailed to the Edison Labs in Orange, New Jersey. And they ended up publishing a book, a 32-page book called Mood Music. And the idea with this book was that it would, again, be available for free. It was very much a promotional item. It was based on these 3 years of psychological research, and it was going to list 135 recordings that were available through the Edison Company, and it was divided across 12 lists according to particular moods. So you could choose from the list of music what music would stimulate and enrich your imagination, or bring you joy, or bring peace of mind. And it also, it had ways that you were supposed to be able to understand what the research behind this music was doing. Now, the research collaboration between Edison and the psychologist was a very short little blip in history. It was about 3 years long, but it launched this larger public interest in the relationship between music and our emotions and what that looks like. How could they affect our health on a larger scale? And so we're actually going to play with this a little bit tonight. We're going to do our own experiment, sort of coming back from the 1920s into a more contemporary version. And Eli's going to explain to us how we're doing this.
All right, so first here, can I ask you for that? Because I know there's a specific link
Yes.
that they need to go to, and I'm a little bit tied up over here. So I'm gonna bring this over here. So this is now our own like kind of little modern experiment. So this is the one thing that they're never gonna tell you to do, is I'm gonna tell you to pull out your phones in the middle of a concert, okay? So what we are gonna do is we're gonna go to this website called Poll Everywhere. So you can scan the QR code, which is visible there. You can also go to pollev.com/moodmusic, or you can text the words mood music, all in one word, no like spacing or anything, to 22333. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit just to get that all set up, and we're gonna do a test round. Don't worry. So we're gonna do a test round as well. So for our test round, we're gonna do just what one word best describes your current mood right now. So I'm gonna give everybody a little bit to kind of put those in. We'll kind of react to them along the way. And once we feel confident, that's when we'll start the actual experiment. Are we ready? Okay. Let's see what we got going.
I can just see a few phones up still. I'll wait just for
I
the
don't know.
QR code.
How about I start with you? Jennifer, how are you feeling today?
I am feeling excited. That is my
Yeah?
one word.
That is my one word too. I'd have to go with excited, or maybe like, I don't know, I gotta one up you here. Like, psyched. Yeah, psyched. I think that's perfect.
Ooh, we've got all sorts of
Okay,
stuff
so
happening
we got
here.
a lot of different feelings right now. We got some relaxed, some anxious. I can feel that. I was a little bit anxious before this as well. It's a pretty big event here. Got some tired, calm, content. I'm sorry for whoever feels achy. Hope you get some rest and get to feel all good. So as we get these numbers, does everybody feel pretty comfortable with this? Do we feel pretty confident that we can do this? Okay, I see some thumbs up. I love the thumbs up going on right here. Okay, so I am going to introduce Blimp City Quartet, which is a student-led quartet here at the University of Akron. They're gonna kind of be our phonograph in this situation, right? They're going to play a certain piece of music, and then I'm gonna have you guys do exactly what you just did right now. Get on the phone, text, tell me what you're feeling after the piece, okay? Do we think we feel pretty good about that? Okay, well now I'm going to have Blimp City come in. We're just going to reset it now, and then we are going to try this again, but for real this time, okay? So, after... It's okay. After this piece, I want you guys to kind of do the same exact thing. What one word best describes your mood? How did it make you feel? How do you feel right now? Okay? Whimsical, bubbly. I definitely got that, especially with like the saxophones. It almost felt like they were laughing, right? Let's see, happy, elated, energized, motivated. It was very upbeat. You know, it was very lively. It was meant to entice you. It was meant to make you smile. So this piece is Saxophone Quartet by Pierre-Max Dubois. It's the fourth movement, which is Andante. So this piece is really designed to kind of have the saxophones sing. You know, I might have said laugh, but it's kind of like that way of like they're singing to you, you know, they feel joyous, they feel whimsy. So the composer really works to try and avoid like the heavy or like gluttonous mellow feeling that you might get from some of these lower tone saxophones. And we keep it light, whimsy, energetic in order to promote this happy and joyous tone. So I think now we kind of got the program and kind of got the idea. Are we ready to do it again? Okay, we're going to have you guys come up again to play our second piece. All right, we're gonna do this one more time. We've got one more one after this, which is kind of like our final round. So this is their second shot. Forlorn. That's a big word. That's one of those like 25-cent words over there. Let's see, we got calm, somber, mysterious, melancholy. I definitely felt that. Definitely felt like a kind of sad song to me, you know? And that's really kind of reminiscent is another word I would use. Wistful, I think that's perfect. So the piece you heard just now was Elegy, which was composed by Gregory Wanamaker. So Elegy is the second movement, which was originally composed for a clarinet and saxophone. It was later kind of adapted to be this like reed quartet version. So Elegy was originally composed in memory for those who died on the tragedy of September 11th, 2001. So it really is this sad song about mourning, about loss. But it's really, the composer himself, it says, it's really transformed to this experience of anyone who wishes to remember a loved one. It's that mourning, that wistful reminiscence. So yeah, all right. We got our last one now. This one's a little bit trickier, so I'm really interested to see what you guys say. So once again, for the final time, we'd like to welcome Blimp City onto the stage. Everybody hear me all right? Yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. This is our last shot. Okay, so this one's a little bit more trickier, so I'm really excited to see some of the type of responses that come through. Playful, energized, funky, I love funky, groovy. Whoever said groovy, you get like all of the points. So this song is actually called Revolution, in parentheses, Groove Machine. And the specific movement that they just played for you is called Groove Cannon. So whoever said groovy, literally you might as well just come up and start doing the show for me. So, but no, this song is very intriguing. It's a little bit more abstract, and it's really used to kind of highlight the like storytelling aspect that music does for you. So this song is really used to showcase the influence of rock and pop music on contemporary American composers. So the composer writes that this is kind of showing you how the influence of pop and rock music kind of flavored the New York lifestyle, and specifically across American composers during the 1980s, and really changed the world over the decades. So you kind of hear some of those rhythms. You definitely got funky beat, playful, joyful, frenzied. Very intriguing, but it really makes you think, and it really makes you think about what music can do. Because in this sense, it's not really necessarily giving you a specific emotion. You know, it's not like some of the other pieces we played where maybe you feel more sad, more remorseful, or more happy. It's a little bit more abstract in the way of it's really supposed to make you think, and it tells a story. So that's kind of a little bit of our little exercise today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're gonna kind of start discussion to our next section here, but we'd like to have Jennifer talk to you a little bit more, and then we'll head over to our main event, which is our speaker today.
So this example from the 1920s in terms of psychologists working with the Edison Phonograph Company to examine how recordings of music could affect people's moods was a relatively short-lived project, right? But it really was sort of the beginnings of a lot of interest in what the power of music might hold. And so whether it was other psychologists and other projects, or mental health centers, general hospitals, schools, the military, there was lots of different ways that music has been explored for the effects that it can have on our well-being generally, whether it's our physical health, our mental health, our emotions. And this really segues into where our speaker is going to be focused tonight in terms of using music for therapeutic purposes. So it really has sort of these nice ties to practices that are continuing to this day.
So without further ado, we would like to introduce Elizabeth Germano, who is the music therapy coordinator at the Akron Children's Emily Cooper Welty Expressive Therapy Center. So Liz earned her bachelor's degree right here in music education at the University of Akron, right here in Gazetta. So she then went on to explore graduate education and received her master's degree in both music education and music therapy from East Carolina University. She has been a board-certified music therapist since 2008 and holds a certification in NICU Music Therapy Specialization, issued in 2019 by the National Institute for Infant and Child Medical Musical Therapy. She currently specializes in providing research-based music interventions to infants in the NICU setting, serving as a full-time music therapist at Akron Children since 2018. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Germano.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here because I am a School of Music alumni, and I spent many times up on this stage, so it's really excited to be here. I love this topic of music and emotion. It's really close to my heart because it's actually why I went into the field of music and music therapy I had a hard time expressing myself as a kid, and music was always my outlet. So, okay, so I wanted to start with a few quotes here about music and emotion, starting with music is the shorthand of emotion. Emotions which let themselves be described in words with such difficulty are directly conveyed to man in music, and in that is its power and significance, by Leo Tolstoy. Music is what feelings sound like, right? In the silence between notes, music therapy finds the voice of emotion. And I'm sure we've heard this quote many times, where words fail, music speaks, and I do think that it's quite overused, but it's so true, right? And scientifically, it's true. So we're going to talk about that more. But I think all of these quotes kind of sum up how universal music is for us. It really is a universal language, right? Because you can go all over the world and find some form of musical expression in every culture. Okay, so on a personal note, I wanted to bring up Bach, Johann Sebastian, because he was my first emotional music teacher. When I was in high school learning his flute sonatas, I had a very good flute teacher at the time who taught me all about Baroque music, but also how to put emotion into my performance. And that really shaped the way how I learned to play music. Okay, so as an overview, we're gonna really dig into music in the brain and how music affects the brain based on the most recent research I came across, but we know a lot about music in the brain because neuroscientists have been studying it for decades. But then we'll get into music therapy and how music therapy treatment can treat emotions, specifically how to identify our emotions, our emotional intelligence, emotional expression, emotional regulation, and our mood. Okay, so, some water here. Music, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, is one of the only modalities that affects or stimulates the whole brain simultaneously. And that's important to note because if you think about tasks that we do every day, walking, talking, reading, typing on a computer, looking at our phones, this all certainly requires some brain activity, right? But music encompasses the whole brain. If you remember that public service announcement from the 80s, I don't know if we were around, some of us were around in the 80s, but there's that public service announcement that said, this is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs, right? Well, this is your brain on music. And by the way, music does release dopamine in the brain, so it's a great alternative to drugs. So yeah, this graph over here kind of shows a little bit of an overview of how, all those pieces, parts that music touches. Also of note, there's more brain activity going on when we're actually making music and playing an instrument versus just passive listening of music. Okay, so let's get cerebral, shall we? First, we're gonna go to the auditory system. So that is in here. And so with auditory, obviously we have our ears, that we have the sound entering our ears, conducting those tiny bones, sending electrical signals to the brain, and then we start to organize those sounds and organize what we're hearing, discerning pitch, loudness, and vibrations, and this all involves our auditory systems. And then the motor cortex is right here in the purple, and music makes us move, right? Whether it's from tapping our toes, clapping, dancing to music, or using those fine and gross motor skills required to play an instrument, they all involve the motor centers of our brain. Musical training not only changes the structural and functional properties of the brain, but also allows for brain plasticity. And the brain is like a muscle, right? We can and should exercise it. And what better way to exercise our brain than with music? It also explains how music can be used to help people who experience an injury and can rehabilitate with music, like learning how to walk and talk again, to gain strength and recover even quicker than without music. Also, learning to play an instrument at a young age can build those muscle memory. Okay. And then on to the cerebellum, which is actually down here. They didn't draw it in there, but it's this structure down at the base of the brain. And that's our center for neural tracking of rhythm. And also, if you think about it, our human bodies are made up of rhythm, right? We have heartbeat, we have lungs, things are moving all around in here, and they all have a rhythm. Next is the hippocampus, which is not labeled here, but it's like right in the middle of the brain there. And that is the center for music and emotions, and that's where we create our music memories. And then we have our visual area back here at the back of the brain. And we use our visual cortex when we're reading and writing music. And also when we're reading music, we're not just reading notes on the page. Sometimes we're reading words and lyrics as well. So it's really multitasking back there. And then the prefrontal cortex is like this area at the top of the brain here. And that involves language and cognition and higher order thinking in the brain, but also our emotional regulation. And speech, which is, where are you, speech right here? And over here as well, the Broca's area. So speech is required for singing, right? And recalling lyrics to a song. And then the corpus callosum is not pictured here because it's way inside the brain. It's that part that connects the two hemispheres in the brain. And science has found that the corpus callosum tends to be a little bit larger in musicians versus non-musicians. If you think about the right side is more creative and the left side is more linguistic, both sides are used during music simultaneously. And because music uses both sides of the brain, those nerve pathways are stronger. So when you learn music or an instrument at a young age, you're just building those neurons, those neural pathways, and they're stronger. Okay. Next we have, so we're going to go a little bit deeper into the brain with the amygdala. And the amygdala is that primitive part of the brain. It's one of the first things to develop in our brain after the brainstem, and it matures shortly after birth. It's also that part that detects fear and threats. But according to a study by Sun and Moore in 2013, they found that the amygdala was activated when listening to music and increased when music was listened to with the eyes closed. So if you're listening to music, like in the car or at home, whatever, it's one thing, but then have you ever listened to music with your eyes closed? And that seems to trigger more of the emotional response in our brain. And then the anterior cingulate cortex, which is in blue right here, was triggered when listening to familiar music, singing, active music making, and when attending to specific characteristics of music. And they found this part was also more pronounced in musicians versus non. Okay. And then we have the orbitofrontal cortex over here, and that was more activated when listening to music versus just speech. The lateral prefrontal cortex was activated when with music-based working memory tasks and correlated with song-like ability. And the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex was activated during singing, music discrimination tasks, and improvisation. So that's this whole area here. So if you think about it, how do we memorize things? How do we learn our ABCs? How do we remember them? We sing them, right? So adding a melody to speech kind of rewires those pathways in the brain so we remember them better. Okay, so on to music therapy. So music therapy is the practice of using music interventions in a therapeutic relationship to address cognitive, physical, emotional, and social needs of an individual. It's provided by a board-certified music therapist who assesses, creates a treatment plan, implements interventions to meet the unique goals of the client. So it's not a person or music therapist playing for someone. It's more about the relationship that is built between the music therapist and the patient or client. Okay. So in order to become a music therapist, it requires a bachelor's degree, so a 4-year degree at an approved college. And then we are required to do 1,040 hours of a clinical internship. And then once we've finished that internship, we can sit for the board exam, which is issued by the Certification Board for Music Therapists. And this gives us the ability to practice music therapy anywhere in the US. And to maintain that certification, we have to earn 100 continuing education credits every 5 years. A couple of years ago, the state of Ohio, we also got licensed. So there are probably about 10 or 12 states now that offer licensure. And so this just requires some more credits to maintain the license. Okay. So how does music therapy address emotions? And since music and emotion are best friends in the brain, we as music therapists can use this to address specific goals. Music can help us identify our emotions, especially like when we're going through a stressful time, or for my patients who are mostly children, sometimes they don't have the vocabulary to be able to express what they're feeling. Especially some kiddos, they can't speak. They're nonverbal because of whatever medical diagnosis they have. So music can really give them a voice. And that being said, we use music to express our emotions, and we can use music to regulate our emotions, which also affects our mood. Okay. So how do we specifically identify our emotions with music? Well, we can do this by just listening to start. And in Western music, we tend to hear major keys as more happy, associated with happy emotions, whereas minor keys evoke emotions of or feelings of sadness or contemplation. But how many times have you listened to a song and it just validates how you're feeling in the moment? Let's see. And then when we're listening to music, it's not just our brains processing what we're hearing. We have a physiological response. So that could be our heart speeding up or slowing down, our breathing regulates, our blood pressure goes down. I see this in infants that I see for music therapy. So when I'm singing to them, their heart rate will go down and their respiratory rate will go down, and that's telling me that they're relaxed and they're calm. Music preference is also a good indicator of mood and emotions. Think about the music that you were listening to as a teenager versus as an adult. And has that changed at all? And then we find that we may go through phases of listening to different types of music. And then with instrument play, we compare an instrument to convey an emotion. So this can look like releasing some of that pent-up emotions like anger or frustration, and we can put that into a drum. We can, again, convey those emotions by having a patient choose the instrument that they want to use that instrument to convey the emotion that they're feeling. And it can also look like asking the patient, well, how are you feeling right now in this moment? And having them choose an instrument to portray what that sounds like to them. Okay, so emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? I think it's being able to identify our emotions and then use them to elicit change and overcome challenges or difficulty. But it's also, I think, about self-awareness, and that's where music can come into play. So we can improve our self-awareness by being more present in the moment. We're aware of our thoughts and our feelings that we are experiencing, while also allowing ourselves to actually feel them and not stuffing them down or pushing them away or denying that they're there. I think engaging in music almost forces us to acknowledge our feelings and that they're there for us to teach us something, and they're not against us, although it might feel, icky sometimes. But that allows us to have empathy for ourselves and others. We can use music to strengthen our social skills as well. So say, like in a group session, if you've ever participated in a drum circle, which we like to do music therapy. We're music making together, and we're listening and responding to each other in a positive way. And that gives us an opportunity to be aware of other people's emotions as well. Music can also improve our cognitive and developmental skills. I think about this specifically with the infants that I work with again. But sometimes our kiddos are stuck in the hospital for months and months on end because of their treatment. And so sometimes they can get behind in meeting their developmental milestones. So engaging in music therapy can help maintain those skills while they're, in the hospital. All right, emotional expression. So, humans are built for creative expression. In fact, when we don't, it leads to illness in the body. Physical illness is just a manifestation of imbalance in the body. But if we don't express our emotions, that can lead to depression and anxiety. So we can do this in a variety of ways in music therapy. We can do it through singing. We can do it through playing an instrument. We can do it through improvisation, which is just playing in the moment. But this can be freeing for a lot of people, but it can also cause some anxiety. And sometimes for kids and adults alike, we need that structure, right? So we can start with something more structured, like playing a steady beat and kind of deviating from there, being more creative and creating our own beats and rhythms. And then receptive music is through listening to live music, and so listening to preferred music can reduce pain perception, it can reduce anxiety, and it can, improve our mood as well. Recreative music is where we take a familiar song and we just recreate it with instruments or singing. And so one of my favorite examples of recreative music is if you're familiar with Jimmy Fallon and his late night show, he would bring on people with the musical toys and they would, play a song. And so I think that's just a fun example recreative music, right? And then music for catharsis is using music to, again, release those emotions. Sometimes we're not even aware that we're holding an emotion in until we hear that song, right? Or we're playing an instrument. Another one that I didn't put up here was also songwriting and composition. So that is a really powerful way to express our emotions. And it's powerful because it's something that you created, and music therapists can facilitate that process. Okay. So what is emotional regulation exactly? It's really about being aware of the nature of our emotional experiences and being able to move through them and move to a different, more manageable, comfortable state. And so music can also serve as an implicit and explicit resource for emotional regulation. So internally, we might have this with like song association. And then externally, it evokes change. We can focus on the emotional content of the music, like listening to a song and analyzing, thinking about the lyrics of the song. Okay, a few different interventions or techniques that music therapists use to assist with emotional regulation is the ISO principle. And the ISO principle is always, it's about meeting the patient where they're at and then moving to a more manageable state. So maybe we're really angry or anxious about being in the hospital or having to get poked again or having to go through another procedure. And so that can be really frustrating for young ones. So we might start with a drum and just play really fast or just play with that emotion, or we might listen to a song that's more upbeat, and then gradually moving to beats that are more steady or more rhythmical, or listening to a song that's a little bit slower. And then entrainment is when we're playing a rhythmic pattern to match our breathing and to change it to a more calm and steady state. So this can look like with drumming. If you've ever been in a drum circle and everybody's just playing, but if you keep playing for a few minutes, there's this magical thing that happens when everybody starts playing together and in rhythm. So encourage you to try that, experiment with that, because it happens like almost every time I've done it with a group. So that's kind of what entrainment can look like. It can also be when I'm working with patients who are maybe really, really sick in the hospital, or they're actually intubated and sedated and they're not able to talk, but you can still see that they're distressed based on their breathing. So what I will do is I will play something soft, like on a guitar or with a voice, and play to their breathing. So I am matching the tempo of my playing with the person's breathing wherever they're at, but then gradually slowing that down. And 9 times out of 10, their breathing will start matching the music. And then with mood regulation, we all have positive and negative emotions, right? We're human. But we can and should experience these emotions because they can lead to behavior change. And music can help us process our emotions and improve our mood. Music likability really matters. In a study by Silva in 2011, they found that most emotion-related brain activity was triggered by whether the person liked or disliked music, rather if it was familiar or unfamiliar to them. So it's more about the music that they liked. So in other words, listening to music that we like directly accesses those emotional centers of our brain, which is why patient-preferred music is so important when we're in music therapy treatment. Okay. And then there's the aesthetic experience. It's one of my favorites. Nothing gives us an aesthetic experience like music, right? Whether we're at a concert or an opera, like the one I have pictured here, the Magic Flute is one of my favorites. But it can also look like just playing for pleasure, giving us an experience of calm and peace and transcendence. Music can really take our pain away when we're, again, actively listening or playing music. It almost interrupts those pain receptors in our brain. So we're not experiencing, it doesn't make the pain go away, but it makes us experience the pain less when we're in music. Again, we can do this through improvisation, which I kind of talked about before. And then soundscaping is taking fun instruments like we have ocean drum, rain stick, thunder drums, and using those to recreate an environment. So we can use instruments like that to recreate a beach scene, or we can recreate the sounds of nature. And then we can add guided imagery into that to promote a state of deep relaxation. Okay, and of course, music can trigger memories, good or bad. I'm sure we've all experienced this in some way. But this is why music therapists assess and get to know patients and their preferred music to avoid those bad triggers, because sometimes we don't know. It could be even a certain sound that can trigger a patient. So for example, at Akron Children's, we are a regional burn unit, and so we often have fire drills that happen and the fire alarms go off. So that can be really triggering for someone who has just suffered a burn injury. But with music therapy, if we're there, we can be present and we can help them through those emotions. And I'm sure we all have that certain song that reminds us of a loved one, or it reminds us of that trip we took with some friends or family. So this, it can be good and bad, but it's just what we do with those emotions that can be helpful. But it can also be cathartic as well. All right, back to our friend Edison, right? So this was during the 1920s, right? And I think that he was onto something. He attempted to make music functional, attempted to measure emotions with music. He attempted to kind of classify music according to its psychological effects. It was also explored during a time when music in the workplace was improving productivity, and we all are aware of that too in our workplace. Sometimes we need music to work. However, music cannot be prescribed, as music and emotion are so much more nuanced and experienced on so many levels. So I think that the common thread that I wanted to convey to you today is how music and emotions are both so fluid, right? They're not stagnant. We move through them, we move with them. And so it's a journey. It's a journey. And then music therapy would become an organized profession after World War II. So in the 50s, the first graduate program was started. So that's what I have for you today. I love memes, so I thought I'd pull up just a few fun ones to end with. The bad thoughts and the bad vibes are not today. Yeah. But I welcome your questions if you have any. Thank you so much for having me and letting me speak to you about something that I'm so very passionate about. So, thank you. Any questions? Yes.
You talked about the amygdala.
The amygdala.
Is there any research or anything on the pineal gland?
I'm not that I read, but I'm sure there is because they're very closely related. Yeah. Yeah. This Lee was asking about the pineal gland. If there's any music with the pineal gland. Anybody else? Yes. What's your favorite song? I have so many, but one that I always go back to is Kenny Loggins. He's my favorite. Always go back to him. Yeah.
What percentage of music has words to it?
What percentage of music has words to it? That is beyond my brain. I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. Yes.
Do you know what would make somebody really love a piece of music and somebody else despise that same piece of music?
So I'll just repeat so everybody can hear. But what makes a person really like a certain type of music and despise it? And it really comes down to personal preference. I mean, we're all different, every one of us. So it's really based on that personal preference. And it also comes down to sound. You can talk about, how some sounds can be really triggering for us, whereas other sounds don't bother us at all. Yep, more research.
I have heard of a condition, I don't know the term, people who, I'm wondering if this is related to their brains, they have the inability to enjoy music. It doesn't strike them the same way it does most people. Are you familiar with?
Yeah, a little bit. So she's asking, there's some people that don't even enjoy music, and and it might be a cultural thing too. Music is different for everybody, so it might be culturally, maybe it's not as prominent in some places, and so I don't know. Yeah, all thought-provoking questions. Yeah.
You work with infants?
Yes.
Do you know if there's any work being done with terminal patients, like late stage?
Yes. So as music therapists, we're actually trained to use music from birth to old age to end of life and hospice care. So yes, we work with all different populations, all walks of life, but it's just using our interventions to adapt to the person's need. Yeah. Back there?
You work on a NICU. Do you ever check with the mothers about what kind of music the babies were exposed to in utero?
Yes and no, but based on my NICU MT training, so I kind of skipped over that, but with NICU music therapy training, it's an extra credential that we can earn, and it's specifically interventions for premature infants and families. And so based on the research of Dr. Jane Stanley at Florida State University, lullabies are the safest music for babies because we don't, especially when they're premature, they're exposed to sounds that they shouldn't be because they're supposed to still be in the womb. And the womb is neuroprotective, right? So the baby can't hear sounds outside, but they're muffled because they're in the womb, right? So when they're born prematurely, they can get really overstimulated and irritable because they're exposed to live sound. So with music therapy, it's we can again, use the lullabies are the safest and low stimulation until they grow and they're more able to tolerate more complex sounds. Yep. Mm-hmm.
What's the most prominent style of music in your
The most prominent style is really, again, it comes back to patient-preferred music. So I primarily work with children. So again, it's a big variety. K-pop is really big right now, so we're doing a lot of K-pop. But like, you know, with younger kids, it's, you know, like nursery rhymes more, those developmental songs that support them. But it's pop songs, it's rap songs, it's country, it's really everything. Yeah.
I sort of have two questions.
Uh-huh.
I saw that you also are a Reiki master.
Yes.
So I wonder if you use music in your Reiki practice, and related to that, there is frequencies out there, like solfeggio frequencies, right? You
Right.
do this full with focus music and certain frequencies that promote focus or inner peace or emotional cleansing or healing. Are you familiar with this? Is this
Yes.
comeback, or are you connecting music into your energy work, or how does?
Yes. Yes. So she's asking more about Reiki and sound. So there's like an offshoot. It's not music therapy per se, but it's sound therapy. And so I do like sound healing with like crystal bowls, and crystal bowls have each have a certain pitch and frequency to them that can be healing and to promote relaxation. But music and Reiki, they're both energy. And Reiki is just, it translates into life force, universal life force energy. So it's just a different type of energy that the person is trained to channel for relaxation. But we can definitely pair it with music as well. So. Uh-huh.
How can instrumental versus like lyrical music affect a person, like with words and patterns?
Okay, so I heard the first part about like instrumental music, and then what was the second?
Like music with words, how can it affect like based on the lyrics?
Sure, that's a great question. So yeah, again, it comes down to patient preference, but sometimes we, as trained music therapists, we will kind of choose the best thing for them in the moment as well. So sometimes, like listening to a song with lyrics can be, again, emotionally triggering. So taking words out and just being in the music can be more helpful. So it's like working with the patient and what their needs are in the moment. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for those great questions. I'm sorry I couldn't answer all of them, but they're going to make us think for sure. So thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Well, how was that? Did you all enjoy the night? Good to hear, good to hear. Well, thank you all for coming, but don't leave just yet. I would like to give a couple of thanks, well-deserved thanks, and I actually have a little note card here prepared. I'd like to formally thank the PEGS Foundation for sponsoring tonight's event, making it possible. The PEGS Foundation works to promote innovative programs and projects with a focus on mental health, education, the arts, and of course, events like tonight's. I'd also like to give personal thanks To Dr. Allen, the advisor of Psy-Chi, the Department of Psychology at the Buchtel College of Arts and Sciences, this would not be possible without them, John Andres and Alex Morris up in the booth over there, and John right over there, they ran audio, made the audio part of this possible. I'd like to give thanks to, of course, the Cummings Center, the National Museum of American Psychology. Big round of applause for them, please. I'd like to give thanks to Tony Pankuch and Jennifer. Jennifer, are you in the audience? Yes. Thank you so much. I'd like to give thanks to Dr. Carricker, who is the director of bands here at the School of Performing Arts. He is the advisor for Tau Beta Sigma. Could not make it tonight, unfortunately, so. I'd like to give thanks to our photographer for tonight, Esther Zhang, in the back over there. And of course, I'd like to give thanks to all of our performers for tonight. Dr. Thompson, are you in the audience? Dr. Thompson. And our undergraduate performers, the Blimp City Quartet, who I believe had to leave, so they're not here. And of course, the act that is going to end tonight, the Rue Reeds Quartet. But we have a couple more things to say before we welcome them onto the stage. And of course, final thanks to Kennedy Hall, sorry. Sarah Jones Saddleton.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to pass the mic off to Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Davis, and I am the treasurer of Tau Beta Sigma. Now, you may be wondering, what is TBS? Well, TBS, not only does it stand for Tau Beta Sigma, but we are the band service sorority here at the School of Performing Arts. There are ones in different districts everywhere, but the main goal is to better the band, but also to better the School of Performing Arts. So, the reason why I'm here today is to ask you to help contribute to our fundraiser that we have coming up. Now, you may be wondering, where's my donation and where's my money going to be going to? Well, that's a great question. So firstly, we want to go ahead and renovate the lounge that is on the 3rd floor. You are more than welcome to go ahead and take the elevator or the stairs to look at it now. A lounge is wonderful for music students, theater students, and for dance students. Not only is it a time for us to relax, it's a time for us to eat lunch, it's a time for us to work on theory homework and then cry thinking about our piano test later in the day. Thank you. I know. How many of us are music students out there? Yeah, how many of us have cried over a test? Beautiful. But it's also a great time for us to mingle with friends and enjoy the time that we have. A lounge is a big part of any music school, and a lounge is a big part of what you enjoy. Rather in the future, you're working with career or just things in general. So your colleagues are important, and that is how we network today and enjoy our time. So your donations not only will go to a lounge, but also help with marching band. We provide band apples, and we help with lunches as well. We also do our wonderful stand here. I don't know if you could hear it, but I definitely did. This one squeaks over here. So we make sure we have WD-40 and we're checking the stands, and we do that. We provide service back for the bands. So anything that the School of Performing Arts needs, that is what we do. So your money would be greatly appreciated. You can go ahead and meet me or other Tau Beta Sigma members outside in the atrium. And if you would kindly go ahead and give us your email or your phone number and your name, that would be great, so we can go ahead and add you to our upcoming fundraiser to help with any of the donations here and giving back to the School of Performing Arts. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. Now, I know we're getting near the end of things, so I'd like to introduce our final group tonight, which would be Rue Reeds, our woodwind quintet. So thank you so much, Rue Reeds.